Ladies and gentlemen, we're standing by for further word from Honolulu, and we expect to rejoin them in just a moment.
On December 7th, 1941, a Japanese air fleet bombed the primary Pacific naval base of the United States at Pearl Harbor. The following day, December 8th, 1941, the United States Congress declared war against Japan. Following this declaration, Germany declared war against the United States, and by the end of the day, on December 8th, 1941, the United States found themselves at war with both Germany and Japan.
The U.S. became entangled in 2 wars overnight. This meant they would need a lot of manpower. So, the draft and recruitment of young men began. Like many other towns across the country, Wayland, Massachusetts sent many young men to fight in this war. As a result, the people of Wayland decided to create a newspaper that they would send out to their troops called the Cochituate Jeep.
The motto of the Cochituate Jeep is the conveyor of news from the folks at home to their servicemen and women everywhere. The Jeep explicitly declared that it was its own duty to keep the Waylanders that were fighting in World War II up to date on their hometown. The Jeep was dedicated to the Waylanders stationed in other parts of the world, and those Waylanders reciprocated. This newspaper held so much value to those serving in the war, it was, for many, the favorite part of their day to read the Wayland news.
Dear Jeep, many thanks for sending me this grand little paper. It means so much to me and all the boys in the service. Each time it is due, I can hardly wait to read what my friends and buddies are doing back home. It seems the one link that erases the many miles and brings me right back to the old town itself and all that I left behind. I would not want to be without it. Thank you again. Sincerely, Malcolm Tenney.
The Cochituate Jeep was a two-way connection between those living in Wayland and the Waylanders stationed far from home. While those in the war received news of the ordinary happenings of the town, those living in Wayland would receive news of their family and friends fighting in the war.
The teams of the high school have really been tossing baskets, polishing off Ashland and Acton. It might be fitting, though hardly necessary, to mention that they are still working on that Weston jinx. Bus transportation for athletes being still prohibited by federal regulation, considerable difficulty has been encountered. However, we hope for an early end to their problems. Bill Morrissey.
A popular article that would show up frequently in the Jeep was the Servicemen's Column. This column would report back to Waylanders the information and status of deployed soldiers. For example, Frank Smith, son of Mrs. Dora Kane, is in the hospital in England. He was stationed somewhere in England before he was admitted to the hospital. Not only was news about the servicemen and women reported in the Jeep, but the soldiers themselves would write personal letters that would make their way back to Wayland via this newspaper. The chit-chat column was a place in the Jeep where letters from soldiers could be read. One example of a letter to the Jeep comes from Raymond Snell. He says,
I received the Jeep today, and gee, I was glad to get it. I look for it all the time. I'm now on the USS YF 734. I haven't seen any of the boys yet. I sure would like to see Anthony. How does Paul Tobin like France? Please keep the Jeep coming, the best little paper going. Just a gob.
It's clear that the Cochituate Jeep was a huge boost of morale for the soldiers away from home. In a poem titled The Letter Somebody Didn't Write, Corporal M.K. Linz describes why the connection to home is what keeps them going. He explains that the worst parts of the war itself were not nearly as bad as losing their precious connection to their hometown of Wayland.
It ain't the heat, nor the blistered feet, nor the meals of spam in place of meat, nor the butter like lard, nor our turn at guard. None of these is one half as hard as the jolt we get after all the sweat, and a cheery voice says, no mail yet. And it ain't the breeze, like a dragon's sneeze, that peels the hide and weakens the knees, nor the dirt in your gun, nor the broiling sun. These are forgotten when day is done, but our voices fail and our faces pale if we draw a blank when it's time for mail. We can stand the flies and the sand in our eyes, the orders, the rumors, the truth and the lies. The mosquitoes swarm and the water warm, and the wards that reek of chloroform. What takes our fight and makes throats tight are the letters somebody didn't write. Corporal M.K. Linz.
Back in Wayland, life kept moving forward. Elections were held and holidays were celebrated. But the people of Wayland never forgot their troops. As stated by the priest at St. Zephyr's Parish, to the men and women in the service from Cochituate and Wayland, we send our cordial greetings and our earnest and prayerful wishes for welfare and success. May we soon be united again. The priest of St. Zephyr's Parish, Father McGuire and Father Tessier. To support their troops from home, the people of Wayland participated in rationing. The purpose of rationing was to save food for their troops. It is stated in the Jeep, in the Words of Wisdom section, rationing means less and less, of more and more, oftener and oftener. Rationing and practices like rationing allowed everyone, old and young, to be involved in the war effort.
The people of Wayland lifted soldier spirits not only by serving as fond memories, but also by actively supporting the war effort. One of the many ways Wayland supported its troops in the war was by sending out war bonds. In the town of Wayland, there was a lottery set up for war bonds. Wayland citizens would pull the names of troops from a bowl, and the Jeep would announce the winners of the bonds in every issue. Aside from the joy it brought to soldiers hearing their names mentioned in the paper, the war bonds were money donations. These donations indirectly provided Wayland and other American troops with food, weapons, and other supplies. The pages of the Cochituate Jeep displayed portraits of bond winners and those that drew their names. One example reads, "Wendell Boggs wins a bond. Congratulations. We all miss you, Wendell, when we go into Benny's drugstore." Underneath shows a picture of a Wayland high schooler with the anecdote, "Richard Drew, writer of the high school sports column for the Jeep, drew Wendell's name. Dick's father, Richard B. Drew, is in the service." When World War II struck the United States in 1939, young men were quickly shipped overseas, not knowing the horrors they might encounter in the coming years. When they experienced a harsh wake-up call on enemy territory, one of the only things that brought them joy and comfort were the memories of home. Just by merely existing, the Cochituate Jeep gave Wayland soldiers an escape from the battlefield. Even if it were only for a few minutes, reading the Jeep relieved Wayland troops of their duties and let them slip away into their life back home.